So I watched Avatar Fire and Ash, and I have to say, I wonder what that film franchise would look like if it wasn't written by a white man. Because it was definitely, definitely written by a white man.
Well, I'm not white. The Avatar film series has quite a few themes: colonization, neocolonialism, indigenous struggle, romance, family. But from my perspective, the overarching themes are white saviorism and assuaging of white guilt. From the very first film, we are given a strong message that not all of the colonizers are guilty. Some are kind and care for the plight of the colonized, whereas Augustine and Norm Spellman represent those who are sympathetic to the Navi cause from the very beginning. And there's an undertone that Navi anger towards the sympathetic sky people is wrong. Jake Sully, chosen of the Navi goddess herself, represents the colonizer who is won over by the beauty of Pandora and the Navi. He not only takes on the mantle of the greatest Navi warrior, but becomes leader of the Omaticaya clan, despite barely even speaking their language. Miles Quaritch Sr. and Jr. further these themes. Quaritch Sr. becomes a parallel to Jake Sully, having been reborn in a new Navi human hybrid body. Though he hates the natives, the Navi, this body gives him the chance to experience the Navi way of life, and he does so. His son, Spider, is practically raised Navi. He feels connected to them, and by the end of the third film, he is accepted by the community as one of the Navi. I suspect that Spider's father will take a parallel path to Jake's, finally accepting the way of the Navi. Either that or his second death at the end of the third film is legit, and that is his redemptive acceptance of the Navi and Awa. In short, Avatar is a clear product of its creator. While it certainly does have an anti colonial message, that message is weakened by being the fantasy of a colonizer. Jake Sully gets the girl, then puts countless people in danger to protect his new life and family. He, a colonizer from the stars, becomes a military leader of the Navi, renowned all over Pandora. And there's more I could say, but that's not the point of this video. The point is to answer the question of what choices I would have made if I were writing a story like Avatar. I, as a man living on an island that was colonized by Europeans and still has the King of England as head of state to this day, how would I construct this story? Well, the first change I'd make is to make the Navi the true center of their story. In other words, the main characters would be Navi, not Sky people. Their societal structure could be the same, but I would not make them sexy alien blue people in skimpy clothes who live in stereotypical tribal huts and sleep in hammocks. That's just lazy and clearly designed to make them fit the exotic native trope. Neytiri, as both a warrior and daughter of the leaders of her clan, would make a good main character. Our introduction to the Navi could be them defending their planet or their home from their invaders, maybe stopping the humans' destructive actions. Second, I would make changes to their aesthetic. The story is set hundreds of years in the future, when humanity has developed the technology to do interstellar travel. Even if the indigenous population of Pandora was as technologically advanced as humanity is today, it's easy to believe that they would not stand a chance against the colonizers. So in order to avoid this trope, I would give the Navi access to technology and architecture that is not reminiscent of the stereotypical primitive native. Maybe the Navi could use their neural cues to guide the growth of vegetation so that they make living homes, meeting places, and places of worship. That way, the Navi would have functional architecture without destroying the natural environment, in contrast to the invaders who destroy as they build. I would give them access to metal too, again perhaps using their neural cues to connect to trees and thus mine with the roots of these trees in a way that doesn't destroy the environment. Their ingenuity and care for their home would lead them to find ways to make sure that any results of smelting are recycled or used in some way so that it does not damage their world. This would hopefully remind the viewer that colonizers have not only never stopped, but also have never needed the indigenous peoples to be stereotypically primitive to justify their actions. Further, I would give the Navi some technological diversity. This is an entire world. Maybe some clans have access to metalwork while others do not. Maybe some build with brick while others do not. Maybe some have schools and writing and others do not. Making them all essentially Paleolithic and Neolithic is just the Planet of Hats trope. The next change I would make is to the Avatar program itself. The goal would not be to befriend the Na'vi and make them sympathetic to the RDA's cause. No. Instead, it would be a covert ops program. In other words, the avatars would be spies. They would be trained to infiltrate the various Na'vi populations, much as Jake does, but without sticking out like an extra finger. There could even still be a romance between Neytiri and Jake, with him using this romance to get close to the clan leaders. Of course, the RDA would not have let the Na'vi retain the ability to reproduce with natural-born Na'vi though. The fact that this happens in the films is just a part of the fantasy that allows the white viewer to see himself as one of the good colonizers, forming a family with the natives. Considering that the RDA see the avatars as their property, it makes no sense to me that they wouldn't just perform a surgery to prevent it from reproducing, much like people do with their own pets today. In fact, maybe they would even make avatars of other Pandoran life. They could use these bodies to enter dangerous or hard-to-reach locations without putting their personnel at risk. I'm genuinely surprised that Cameron never used this idea in his franchise. Those are the main changes I would make. The existence of the avatars would not be something known to the Na'vi or the audience from the beginning, but would be a reveal towards the end of the story. This broken trust would rub salt on the colonization wound, show the lengths the Sky People would go to manipulate the native population, even wear the cultures and bodies of the Na'vi like clothes, if it would further their goals. There would be no human becoming Toruk Makto, no human leading the Na'vi to victory, no human becoming a leader of a Na'vi clan. This would be a true Na'vi story of resilience and ingenuity in their fight against their colonizers. There's a question that has been brought up numerous times in online critical spaces. Why does Avatar have so little cultural impact despite making so much money? People don't really quote or meme the franchise the way they do the MCU or Wicked, for example. My answer is that it plays right into the hegemonic fantasy. It does not challenge it. Any colonizer can watch it and see themselves as Jake or Grace or Norm or even Spider, rather than the greedy, evil corporate baddies. It does not really pressure them to reconsider their thoughts and actions. Instead, they go home and everything continues just as it was, both for them and the colonized. It's comfortable and so not impactful. That is the danger of the white savior trope. And if Avatar is anything to go by, it doesn't seem like the trope is going to die anytime soon. Thanks for watching. If you like what you've seen, drop a like or subscribe. I'm close to breaking 1,000 subscribers, so I'd love to reach it before the end of January. I've been Ken Kwame, and I'll see you next time.